What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Stay Strong, Stay You podcast. I am excited for this one as we have another incredible special guest. Who do we got, Monica?
What up, what up, what up? Today we're bringing in Lorrine Patterson. So let me tell you a little bit about Lorrine. Lorrine Patterson was born in Guam, but never got to experience the version of island life. Her family moved to Oahu, Hawaii, when she was only a few months old, and she was there until she turned 12. And then after watching her parents divorce, she moved to California with her mom. And of course, these experiences during her formative years helped create a lasting sense of wonder combined with curiosity for the world around her. Lorrine earned her Bachelor's of Science in Business Management and her MBA from the University of Phoenix. She has worked in hotel industry, property management, and facilities management, and specializes in customer service. Passionate about all she does, Lorrine stewed over the idea of writing a book for a better part of a decade. It wasn't until the realities of the pandemic life in 2020 took her hold that she decided it was finally time to put pen to paper. Through the suffering and troubling times, Lorrine finally discovered her true passion and purpose in life, bringing some goodness to a world in need. Her first book, Freeing Your Heart for Love, is a memoir. Lorrine is a simple woman who believes everything happens for a reason. And even if we aren't meant to understand why, we are all guided to the right place at the right time. Armed with this theory, she approaches each new day with a contagious enthusiasm. When she is not nestled into her favorite couch writing, Lorrine enjoys spending quality time with her family. She met the love of her life in 2017 and has never been happier. She loves quiet days at the beach and listening to her 3 grandchildren splash and play with the innocence only youth provides. So please help me in welcoming Lorrine Patterson to the podcast.
Welcome, Lorrine. How are you?
I'm fabulous. How are you guys?
So happy that you are here. So happy. We are so blessed to be connected with you, and you have inspired us in so many different ways. So
yeah, I was waiting for my turn on your show. I'm like, yay, it's my turn. Let's go.
Exactly. Yes, we are so happy to be on your podcast. We knew that the love is going to be mutual, and then we had to get you on. So we are so grateful that it's here. It's happening.
Thank you. Thank
Definitely.
you.
One of our first questions is, what is it about you that makes you stand out? We could answer, but we want to know your answer.
I think something about me that makes me stand out is that I am now saying vulnerability is my superpower. It took me a long time to move past the shame, and I still struggle with that shame. As a matter of fact, it just happened yesterday, because sometimes people will come to you and say things that rattles you a little. So it took me a long time to figure out that my superpower is my vulnerability. And I think that's what makes me stand out, is that a lot of people with my story probably would never write the story. I never was going to write the story, especially the third part of my book, because it's very raw and personal. And it's something that not a lot of people want to tell the world. I actually was going to take that part to my grave. So I think with my authentic vulnerability self, I'm helping others. There's many women that come to me now saying, thank you for sharing your story. You have helped me come out and share my story. Even though their story is different, it's similar. That I realize a lot of women went through what I went through. So I'm glad that I, am the way I am. And I think that's what makes me stand out, is that I just share everything. I'm an open book.
It's definitely a big part of you, and I appreciate you for that. Vulnerability is very, very difficult for a lot of us. And it was for me too, especially sharing a part of my life, almost the same, which, being raped, and then of course getting pregnant from that rape, and then choosing to have an abortion. Not something that I talk about very often, because it took me 20 years to say something about it to someone, because I was ashamed. So it's definitely allowed for, when I hear your story, and I heard your story for the first time, I was able to understand that, I wasn't the only one that had experienced bad relationships and those kind of things. So I know how vulnerability is a big step, and we appreciate you for that.
Yeah, cool. I'll count it down. So 3, 2, 1. Yes, what I absolutely love is that you are talking about how vulnerability is your superpower. Like, I absolutely love that. And, I think we all need that reminder at times, even, myself being known for, strength is being vulnerable and sharing your story. But there are times where I also get in my head and I need that, reminder that I have to give my pain a voice. I have to open up to people. And it's being surrounded around people like yourself and Monica and, all of these incredible inspirational women who are doing that, so we can remind ourselves of who we are and the strength that we have. And the more that people continue to speak up and share all that we have been through, more people are going to continue to come forward and share their experience. And I think that is the incredible thing, is that we could just learn so much from each other's lived experience. So I absolutely love that. And it kind of goes into our second question of, that our mission is to help and encourage and inspire other people to recognize that their strength is giving their pain a voice and being their true and authentic self. So how have you given your pain a voice, and what are you doing to encourage other people to give their pain a voice?
So I think the way I do that is just what I do with the nonprofit, what I did with my book. Really, it kind of started from the book. From the book, I thought that was it, right? And then I thought after that, I can help more people. I want to help more people. So I started a podcast show. And the podcast is really similar to what you guys are doing, is I bring people on to talk about their mental health challenges and how they discovered self-love and happiness, and sharing their story of their pain to help others who are in that same place that need to overcome what they're overcoming. And then, of course, I want to do more because I'm just that person. And I wanted to start the nonprofit to help the teenage girls. So I'm really going after the youth, because I was that 16-year-old girl that didn't have support. And that's the reason why I want to help the teenage girls between 14 and 19, because I know what it feels like to not have somebody there to teach you self-love, which is something so simple, but it really is hard. It took me 29 years. So then, I wanted to do more. Whenever there's an opportunity, I never say no. I go after it. If it's not for me, then I move on. But the TV show came out, which will be launching soon. And the TV show is just an extension of the podcast. So it's just these types of platforms where I can share what I went through to help others, and then bring other people on to highlight their pain to help others, kind of like what you guys are doing. And I think that truly, it's magical when you could do that, because not a lot of people are doing that. I think a lot of people are kind of doing things for themselves. I'm all about helping others. I've been like this my whole life, even in my jobs, just day-to-day jobs. It's always been about customer service, about helping people. But now I'm helping people on a different level.
Yeah, that's definitely amazing. I think, we started the podcast when we finally got to meet on Clubhouse, and we were in a room together and we got to share our stories. We all really connected and resonated with each other's stories in some way. And I think that's definitely something that you have continued to inspire, even me and Becca, because of course you started your podcast, and, Becca then started hers. And it was like, like, we can continue to do this. I mean, there are so many people who have not been able to find their voice. Who suffer in silence. And it's people like us who are able to encourage and motivate them to be able to share their story. And I think for me, and I think you guys can agree, that when you actually get to tell your story, it's like you're peeling away the skin, every outer layer of the onion, and it's almost like you're finding who you truly are in the center of that onion as you just shed. So I think it's definitely incredible. You definitely are always spreading love. And we love that about you, Lorrine. We do.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I try to live in that place. It's not like this every day, but when I can flip my mindset to get back to that place, it truly is beautiful. I mean, I've never been able to do that. So now that I'm at a place where I can go back to that place of love and live in that place of love, because I know what it's like not to have love. Because didn't just wake up and say, oh, I'm just so I love so much. I loved, but it was a different kind of love I was doing.
Absolutely. I can relate to that. One thing I would love for you to talk on it is your book and like how that process was for you and what your book is about. Like there may be a teenager or somebody who's listening to this right now that may want to pick up your book. So tell us more about your book and all of that and your podcast.
Yeah, thank you. The book is called Freeing Your Heart for Love. It's a narrative memoir of my life, basically from the age of 16 up to now. And it's just a book about overcoming some of life's greatest challenges, severe suicidal depression, multiple failed divorces. I was married 3 times before I met my husband now. That was hard because who wants to say they've been married 4 times, right? So that was something that I wanted to add in the book. And really, it's just a story of overcoming to reach your happiness and self-love, because it took me 29 years to figure out how to take care of me. And so this is a transformational, inspirational story that I like to share. And it really kind of started from a virtual writing workshop. Like I was just taking this workshop when the pandemic started for fun. I worked for a healthcare company. All of these doctors and nurses were doing it. And it was being around the creative writing. And we started doing these writing prompts. And I was just writing. And I remember crying at the table in one of the writing prompts. It was every Saturday morning. And I was sharing with my husband, I don't know why I'm crying. Like, because I was writing about past experiences from the 80s. And this was in 2020. So I was like, what is going on? And it was like, it was downloaded. Like I became another person when I wrote this book, because I read some of that book and I'm like, did I write that? Because it's like, wow, I just sat down at my computer and literally opened it up and started writing. And I got started in July of 2020 and I finished my manuscript in December of 2020. It was that fast. I just had a goal. I knew I wanted to write this book. I knew who it was for. I knew my why, set a deadline, and then I just went after it. I just like, because I've always been driven in my life. My whole life I've been driven. That was one good quality I had through all the depression and the sadness. I was always driven. I always wanted to do better. So yeah, I got this book out. The process was really hard because it was writing about some very painful experiences. I realized I didn't forgive myself or others while writing this book. So this allowed me to forgive myself, forgive others who have hurt me. And yeah, the third part of my book was really hard. That was when I discovered guided meditation. So I also started meditating in 2020 to get through this book. I almost gave up many times. Even when the book was done and ready to be published, I almost gave up. So it was all the way up until the end of when I actually released it, where I kept saying, do I want to do this? Do I really want to air all this stuff out in the world? But I went back to my why. And my why was to that I knew I was going to help. If one person, then this is worth it. So, and I've helped many. So I'm glad that I put it out, and I'm glad I wrote it that way, because my book coach dropped me a while back, which you two know, for the content of the book. So that was really hard, but there was a lot of things that along the way of the book process where I wanted to give up, but I didn't.
I feel like it just to show when your why is strong enough that there's no struggle that you can't overcome. And I love that. And I know that you being an author has inspired me to become an author. And I think I shared with you that my first draft is done, and I'm on the road. So you definitely are continuously inspiring me, and I encourage each and every single person listening to this to go pick up your book, because it is definitely one for everybody to read.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Lorrine, one of the things that we talk about a lot is that, when people are at that verge of quitting, it's right at that moment that they could potentially have the biggest breakthrough.
Mm-hmm.
So you talked about wanting to quit so many times along this process. Um, did you experience those breakthroughs even when you wanted to quit?
Yes,
How did
definitely.
that feel for you?
A lot of crying. So I didn't know, like, even just talking to you guys, I get emotional talking about it because I'm going back to that experience of when I was writing the book. But it was a lot of crying, a lot of bad dreams. So this book, when I was writing this book, it brought out so much pain. I mean, I had spirits coming to visit me to push me forward. Supposedly an aunt from a third generation. I mean, I know I sound cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, but I did feel something sitting next to me one night because I always used to write at night when the dishes were done and the kids, were cool and my husband was upstairs. I always told them, don't bother me. I spent 1 hour every night to write this book. And I sat on my little comfy couch that you mentioned in the bio. And I said, don't bother me unless the house is burning down, you're dying, or we need to go to the hospital or whatever, right? But don't bother me. This is my writing time. And I remember writing the third part, the hardest part, feeling thing right next to me, and I smelt it. And if you know what that spirit smell is like, it's pretty creepy if you've never smelt it before. So I rushed upstairs, but it was just those little things, like the lights flickering. It was like I was having a spiritual awakening with this also. It opened up my spirit to so many things, and then I was able to heal. I thought I was healed. When I met my husband in 2017, I'm like, yeah, I'm good. But then when I book, I realized I wasn't good. So that was eye-opening for me. A lot of breakthroughs.
That's awesome. Yeah. I think that it's not until we get into certain situations that we actually see that we're not done healing.
Yeah.
And so that was one of the things that I experienced as well. When I felt like I had finally healed and said, you know what, I think I should start experiencing dating. And then as I started to date, I realized, no, like I'm not ready for dating. Like there's still things I have to work on. So yeah, it's definitely those different events that we actually get to encounter and understand for ourselves that we're not done healing.
Right. Yeah.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And I feel like you're saying, like writing writing your book is another way of allowing yourself to heal and face it as you're putting it on paper. I remember going through the same thing, and similar to you, the hardest part was writing about my trauma, the trauma that I never shared with anybody else while I was going through it. And then to be writing it on paper, knowing that this is going to be shared with the world, like it is another level of growth to be like, okay, this is my real vulnerable, giving my pain a voice moment, but this is also going to make an impact. And like you said, it's like thinking about that one person, because the more I think about it, like being out in the world for millions of people, it causes that anxiety, and it has times led to me being like, nope, I'm not going to do this. I don't want to do this. And, it delayed my process, but I also needed that moment to be like, wow, I have overcome so much. And like, I recognized that like, when you write your story, you really are inspired by yourself. I feel like, and like, it's such a gift to recognize that. And the other thing I think, for me, and I don't know if you experienced this too, but I was writing about so many different pain points within my life that when I was trying to write about the good, it was really hard to write about. Did you experience that at all?
No, because the fourth part of my book was about my husband now. And so I really was looking forward to that chapter. It's called Freeing Your Heart for Love, which is the end. But it was getting through all that pain. I even had to go back. I had old emails from this third husband where I was able to draw that out. But that really brought back some really bad triggers of that moment, And that it's just, I talk about that third part because he was the rock bottom. That was my rock bottom that I needed to hit to realize I wasn't valuing my body, that if I continued down this path of what I was doing with my body and these men, that was going to be my life. Like literally my life flashed in front of me. And I was like, I don't want that for my life. I'm in my 30s. Like, come on, Lauren. You know, I had to constantly talk to myself and tell myself things that this is not for you. This is not the life you want. So I had to consciously make a choice that this is not what I want for my life, not for my kids. You know, my kids, my boys haven't read my book yet, but their wives have, you know, and it's like, I've asked them, you know, you probably don't want to read it. It's a lot about mom's, you know, sexual life. You probably don't want to read it, but, you know, they know the concept of it and what it's about. So, and I had to write about their fathers. So that was another hard thing. I had to write about the second husband and the first husband, which is the father of the two boys and the two boys. So I had to think about them. They're not really in the book. It's just kind of the birth experiences, but I changed the names for everybody too, because I didn't want to put people out there that, you know, their business. And so I wanted to protect their privacy. So it's like, it was those hard decisions, you know, that was also like holding me back. Like, do I really want to put this out? But it was cathartic. I love to say, very cathartic.
Yeah, I think that was one of my biggest things. Even just being able to share my story, I was always more concerned on who I could potentially hurt by sharing my story.
Yeah.
And so that was probably the most difficult thing. And then when I actually got the first opportunity to share it on Clubhouse, I invited my sister and my daughter in there. So they were present because I wanted to make sure that if they were going to hear about this, and I was going to say this like out loud to people for the very first time, that they be there to understand and just hear it from me.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, I forgot that happened. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, it's interesting as I am thinking about like how I told my family, like I recognized, you know, I started this podcast and I really wanted to be open and raw about like my journey. And, you know, I was already on my TikTok journey and kind of sharing things. I was like, what if they stumbled upon something? Like, I don't want them finding out through social media or, you know, a book or whatever. Like, I want to be the ones to tell them. So I wrote them a long email. We know we've always done best with, you know, written communication, and it's just worked best for us. But I can totally relate to like, it's hard when you really want to be vulnerable, but you know, it could impact other people. And it's learning ways of like, you know, replacing names or doing certain, you know, tips and tricks. But it's so life-giving to get the task done and to be in a new part, because it's part of the healing journey. And I really think, you know, healing journeys go on and on because, you know, life is a trigger in a way. And there's always going to be moments in which, you know, it's conscious or unconscious. You know, we could be writing a book and be triggered and need to heal. We could be walking down the street and something could trigger us. So I think it's just always coming back to like mental cues within our life that can keep us grounded, or like you said, meditation. So healing is definitely an ongoing thing in my book.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, what is the legacy or impact that you want to leave behind in this world?
You know, that's my my nonprofit. So one of my 4 boys is now on the board. He's the board secretary. He's 19. And I really want to leave it to my family. You know, I want to leave this nonprofit to them. I visualize me being gone and this being a global organization that's helping so many teenage girls and eventually teenage boys and even elementary, college. Like, I want to help more people with this nonprofit. So that's the kind of legacy I want to leave, as well as books, because I'm coming out with my second book on my birthday in June. So this book is going to be dedicated to the youth, to the youth who think they can't write, because these are all pieces that I never thought I could write poetry. I'm writing poetry. I'm a poet. So it's like, I never thought I was going to be a poet, you know, but like I said, this creative part of my brain is now opening up because I'm in an environment that is allowing it. And I realized that in my journey that I wasn't living in that environment. I wasn't encouraged to have this part of my brain, because I think it's always been inside me, because I write pieces and I'm like, I just wrote that. You know, I'm just like in awe of myself, which I never was ever doing that. I would always talk bad about myself. But now I'm like, wow, Lauren, you're writing poetry. You go, you go, girl. So that's the kind of legacy I want to leave behind. Like when people see my name, they're like, wow, she was brave. She was courageous. She really helped me. She helped inspire me. I want to see my funeral with all these people that I never met. Oh yeah, she helped me. I remember Lauren. Even though they never liked my post, it's okay. But you know what? They saw it.
No, that's facts. You got more people watching than they are liking, sharing, and commenting.
Yeah, that's
so,
true.
Definitely.
But I also love that you said you wanted to leave it behind for your family, because I think so often, we do get, and I know this goes for myself too, is we do get caught up in a world trying to impress or do things for other people that might not necessarily be at our funeral or, be supporting us in our personal lives. But like, I think that's the beautiful thing about leaving it to your family, and also that you want the people who are even just watching your content or any of that, because you are helping them, and you never know who, that watcher is how that watcher is being impacted. And I absolutely love that. It goes back to the one person mentality that we all live by. But that is absolutely phenomenal.
And I am helping the one person I always go back to. Her name is LSB Inspires. If you guys don't follow her, she's an amazing poet. She's from the UK. She is coming to meet me in person. I thought about you too, for my birthday in June with her mom and her brother. So I'm finally going to meet that one person that I know I helped. I know I helped many, but I always go back to her because she was one of my first Instagram followers. So I'm really excited to meet her. She's excited too. We're like, oh my gosh, she calls me her American mom.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That is awesome. Yeah. I mean, it's going to be a different impact when you finally get to be able to see them in person, and you understand how much they've inspired you and how much you've inspired them. You're going to create moments that it's almost like you now have this family member, and when it's time for her to go back home, it's like that's what it hits you. And that's how it was for me and Becca. I mean, we were extremely excited to see each other, spend time together, make memories, but it wasn't until she left. So it wasn't until I dropped her off at the airport that it's like, I became a waterfall, it's like she's leaving me. So because, she inspires me as well. And even with you, Lauren, when I first heard your story, I asked myself, could I have overcome as much as she did?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times that's what we do, right? We compare our traumas to everybody else's traumas. And then the reality is that I was just, we're all equally strong just for overcoming.
Yeah.
Just for overcoming. So definitely, that's definitely inspirational. Now, one thing that you said that about leaving this nonprofit and that being your legacy for your family, like how do your children respond when they see their mom, and growing and elevating the way she is as an author, as a podcaster, how do they respond? And like, is it inspiring them?
That's hard. I have 4 boys, so I don't know. I don't know how it is with girls, but boys, they don't show emotion really. So like my 2 oldest boys, 32 and 28, they always congratulate me. They're always supporting me, but it's not like, oh my gosh, mom, my 19-year-old though, my 19-year-old son, he is the one that I have truly inspired throughout this journey. He has opened his mind up to more spirituality. He's practicing the Nichiren Buddhism that I do as part of my spiritual practice. He has taken on this role as the board member. He also edits my podcast and does all my show notes. So he's become like, I don't know, he's not like my mini me, but I'm teaching him how to become an entrepreneur now so that he can step into the role of being the executive director, because right now I'm on the board and I'm actually serving as the executive director, but eventually I will have to step out and focus more on speaking at events and promoting the nonprofit more. And then I want him to eventually go into this role. So he's the one that I inspired, although the 16-year-old, he's kind of getting it now. So it's different with all four of them, but I know that they support me. It's just kind of like, sometimes my 16-year-old will ask me like, why are you doing this? You know, you're always at your desk, because I'm literally at my desk until 9 o'clock at night. And it's like, because the youth needs this right now. They need somebody like me to help them. They need some support. They need someone to teach them self-love, because there's not a lot of schools that are, I don't think schools are teaching this. I don't know, I'm not sure. But when I say what we're doing, I kind of get people looking at me weird, like, oh, is it mental health with a twist? I guess that's maybe a good way to put it. So yeah, I would say that it was my 19-year-old son that's really showing me that I inspire him. And I like to say I inspire all of them, but I think the 19-year-old's the one that really just kind of talks to me about it, helps me promote it, helps me market it. You know, he's doing all the transcription of the Zoom meetings, because you have to keep notes when you're in a nonprofit in case the IRS comes and asks you for it. So he's really stepping up. I'm really proud of him.
That is absolutely phenomenal, because like you said, like, we don't learn this stuff in school. Like, I have not learned positive affirmations and, you know, all of this self-love stuff in school, let alone like how to become an entrepreneur or along those lines. So it's like, I think the more that we can also get to the youth and, you know, really help them to recognize what is possible in the world. And, you know, it's okay if you want to work a 9 to 5, or you want to be a doctor, or, you know, whatever, but there are these other possibilities that they don't teach you in school. And the more that we can just open the eyes of opportunities for the youth is huge for me. Because I know, looking back on my journey, I had seen some entrepreneurship, but, you know, didn't question if I could do it. Wasn't even a thought in my mind. So I absolutely love that.
Me too. I never in a million years thought I would write a book or be an entrepreneur or a podcaster, a TV show host. I mean, come on. I'm like, what? It's crazy sometimes when I think about my journey, because I'm like, oh, that's why I went through all of that, so I could do what I'm doing today. Like, it makes sense now, finally. So that's really eye-opening for me.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that we discussed in your bio was finding your purpose, you know, and so many times people ask me, like, how did you figure out your purpose? Because they're still looking for it. And I said, you don't have to look for it.
Yeah, right.
It's already inside of you,
right.
You know? So what do you tell people when they say, you know, how did you figure out what your purpose was?
And, you know, that's a good question, Monica, because really nobody really asked me that. But when I think about it, it just fell in my lap. Like, it was really the universe saying, now is the time, because I really truly believe that I have an angel team I talk to every morning. And I really truly believe I've had this guardian angel next to my side the whole time, because when I almost took my life in my 30s, I heard something. And now, looking back to what I know now, I've always had some protection along the way to guide me, to keep pushing me to learn that lesson that I needed to learn, because I truly believe life is like school. You're not going to pass the exam until you learn the test, right? So it's like, I was given all these tests with these men, and I go back to that because that was truly the biggest lesson of my life, was valuing my body, because I would just give my body freely. My friends used to tell me, you need to protect yourself, like, you know, like, don't just give your body away. And I would never listen to them. No, they're gonna love me if I just do this for them, right? They're gonna love me because I'm taking care of their needs. But it was like dipping me further and further into depression. So that was the test I needed. And I was given this ultimate test with this third husband, where the universe or the higher powers just said, we're going to give you this test. And if you do not pass, I don't know what to do with you. But I did learn that was what I needed. I needed that third husband to do that with me, that what he was doing with me. I needed that lesson. And I don't blame him for my decisions, because I was there too. I made the decision to do what he was doing. So I had to get past that, because I hated him for that. But it was like, really, Lauren, you were there too. It's not like he put a gun to your head and said, hey, Lauren, you better stay here. No, I decided to stay. So that's truly like the biggest thing, Monica, is just like, that's what I had to really realize, is that, wow, I truly believe that my purpose was all of these lessons, and then it led me to this nonprofit. So my true purpose, I believe, is this nonprofit, is getting this self-love program out to these teenage girls that you can help before they get out of high school to make better decisions. It's really just to make better decisions. It's not a magic wand, you know, it's like really just to give you these ideas and these affirmations, and learn how to take care of yourself before you go out into the real world, you know. So that's what I really believe is my purpose. Could be something else, but I don't know.
I think it's safe to say that you are the purpose and you found your placement within the world. You know? I also absolutely love how you were talking about how life is a classroom, because that is something I also say as well. You know, I think for myself, like having a learning disability, like, yeah, school is hard, yet I had to continue to learn throughout life, and everybody does. And we all need to be that student within life, continuously learning our growth, learning our worth, you know, overcoming these tests, as you're saying. And, you know, brings me back to the times when, you know, I got grades back that were an F or not what I wanted to be. And, you know, people are so anxious about test day. They're so anxious about that result. And it's pushing through the test to see what the result is and learning from the feedback, because as we all know, failure is feedback. And just continuing to push through and continuing to learn and to grow and pivot and adjust so that we can figure out where that placement is within our life. So I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, that was amazing. That was amazing. And yeah, I think one of the revitalizing things that happened to me was figuring out my purpose, because it's almost like then you really truly understand why I went through what I went through.
Yeah.
You know, and you can then help others just be able to overcome not necessarily the same experience, but a like experience. So it's incredible. You are incredible, Lorrine. We are so thankful to have you here today. You shared so many things about yourself. We're excited for you and everything that's coming your way. You have elevated definitely, and still elevating. And we are so honored to have you as a guest. Now for the listeners and everybody watching on YouTube, where can everyone find you?
Just go to my Instagram at Writing is My Kismet. That has everything. You'll be able to find the podcast show link there, because I have 3 different social media accounts on Instagram. So there's one for the nonprofit, one for the podcast, and one for my writing page. So just go to Writing is My Kismet, and you can find all the links there. But I really appreciate you too, and I love you gals, and you guys keep shining and doing all your light work, because you guys are amazing. And I'm going to try the transition, and I'll tag you guys on the reel.
Yes.
Yes, we definitely want to see it. And we'll definitely put all of your, what's that?
You guys inspired me to do that.
The love is mutual, my friend. We love and are so encouraged and inspired by you. And we will definitely put your Instagram handles and all of that in the show notes, so people can reach out and connect with you. But thank you again for being here. And we know that our listeners are going to be inspired and encouraged by you. So if what Lorrine has said has impacted your life, connect with her on IG. The handles will be in the show notes. But continue to be the resilient warrior that you are within this game of life. But no matter what, stay strong, stay you.
Because you got this.